Have you ever seen a room full of millionaires go so silent you could hear a pin drop? That's exactly what happened last Tuesday night at L'Orizzonte, the most exclusive restaurant in Manhattan. It started with a spilled drop of wine and ended with a sound that echoed through the dining hall, a crisp, brutal slap. A billionaire's fiancée struck a struggling waitress across the face, expecting to get away with it. She didn't. What happened in the next 5 minutes didn't just ruin a dinner. It destroyed an empire, exposed a 5-year-old lie, and ended with the police shackling the wrong person. Or so we thought. You need to hear this. The soles of Gabrielle Miller's shoes were worn thin, much like her patient's, but she kept a plastered smile on her face as she navigated the crowded floor of L'Orizzonte. This wasn't just a restaurant. It was a theater for the elite of New York City, a place where a single appetizer cost more than Gabrielle's weekly grocery budget for herself and her 4-year-old son, Leo. Table 4 needs a top-up on the sparkling water. Gabriel, move it, hissed David Ross, the floor manager. Ross was a man who sweated anxiety. He was constantly wiping his forehead with a handkerchief, terrified that one wrong move would anger the clientele. And fix your apron. You look like you've been through a war zone. Yes, Mr. Ross, Gabriel said quietly, adjusting the starch-stiff white fabric at her waist. She felt like she had been through a war zone. Leo had been up all night with a fever. And her landlord, Mr. Henderson, had slid a red-inked eviction notice under her door that morning. She needed this shift. She needed the tips, specifically. She needed the tips from Table 1, the VIP booth currently reserved for the city's most talked-about couple. The heavy oak doors of the restaurant swung open, and the air in the room seemed to shift. Conversations lulled, heads turned. Entering the room was Nathaniel Harrington. At 32, he was the face of Harrington Tech, a man whose net worth hovered somewhere in the 11 figures. He was handsome in a severe, unreachable way, wearing a bespoke charcoal suit that fit him like armor. But it wasn't Nathaniel who drew the terrified glances of the staff. It was the woman clinging to his arm, Tiffany Street, Claire. She was stunning, undeniably so, with platinum hair cascading down her back and a red dress that looked like it had been poured onto her skin. But her reputation was ugly. The tabloids called her the Ice Queen of the Upper East Side. Waiters called her the Nightmare. Gabriel. Ross grabbed her arm, his grip tight. You take Table 1. Jenny called in sick, and I don't trust the new guy with Saint. Claire, if you mess this up, don't bother coming in tomorrow. Gabriel's stomach dropped. Waiting on Tiffany Street, Claire was a known suicide mission. Mr. Ross, please. Go. He shoved a crystal carafe of water into her hands. Gabriel took a deep breath, steeling herself. Do it for Leo, she told herself. Just get through 2 hours. Smile. Nod. Be invisible. She approached the booth. Nathaniel was already seated, scrolling through something on his phone, looking bored and detached. Tiffany was making a show of inspecting the cutlery, holding a polished fork up to the light to check for water spots. Good evening. Welcome to L'Orizzonte, Gabriel said, her voice steady. My name is Gabriel, and I'll be taking care of you tonight. Can I start you off with... Tiffany didn't look up. She dropped the fork onto the table with a loud clatter. This fork is cold, she stated, staring at the tablecloth. I apologize. Miss, Gabriel stammered, I can bring you a fresh one immediately. Don't bother, Tiffany waved a manicured hand dismissively. Just bring us the wine list, and try not to hover. You smell like public transit. Nathaniel looked up then, his dark eyes flickering over Gabriel for a split second. There was no recognition, no sympathy, just a blank assessment before he returned to his phone. "Tiffany." "Relax," he murmured, though he sounded more exhausted than authoritative. "I will not relax." "Nate," she snapped. "We are celebrating our engagement announcement. I want perfection. Is that too much to ask?" Gabriel retreated to the kitchen, her cheeks burning. "She's in a mood," she whispered to Carlos, the sous chef, as she grabbed the wine list. "She's always in a mood," Carlos grunted, plating a lobster risotto. "Watch your back." "Chica." The next hour was a masterclass in humiliation. Tiffany sent back the bread because it was too crusty. She claimed the soup was tepid when steam was clearly rising from it. She made Gabriel recite the specials 3 times, only to order something off-menu, through it all. Nathaniel Harrington remained silent, eating mechanically, occasionally texting. He seemed less like a fiancé and more like a hostage who had accepted his fate. Gabriel was exhausted. Her feet throbbed every time she approached the table. Tiffany found a new flaw. The tension in Gabriel's chest was winding tighter and tighter. She was running on 3 hours of sleep and the terrifying adrenaline of impending poverty. Then came the main course. Gabriel balanced the heavy tray on her shoulder. A filet mignon for Nathaniel, rare. A Dover sole for Tiffany, deboned, sauce on the side. As she lowered the tray stand, a busboy squeezed past her in the narrow aisle, bumping her elbow. It was a tiny nudge, barely anything, but it was enough. The sauce boat on Tiffany's plate wobbled. A single drop, no larger than a dime of the lemon butter sauce, splashed over the rim. It landed on the tablecloth. Not on Tiffany. Not on her dress. On the white tablecloth, 3 inches from her hand. Time seemed to stop. Gabriel froze. "I am so sorry," she gasped, reaching for a napkin to dab the spot. "Let me just—" Tiffany stood up. The movement was so sudden, so violent, that her chair screeched against the floorboards. The entire restaurant went silent. "You clumsy, incompetent little idiot," Tiffany shrieked. Her face, previously porcelain perfect, was twisted into a mask of pure rage. "Do you know how much this dress costs? Do you know who I am?" "Miss, it didn't touch your dress," Gabriel said, her voice trembling. "It's just on the table." "Are you talking back to me?" Tiffany's voice rose an octave. "You almost ruined a $40,000 gown with your filthy incompetence. I want you fired. I want you out of here now." Ross, the manager, was sprinting across the dining room, his face pale. "Miss St. Clair. Please, I apologize. Gabriel, step back." "No." Tiffany yelled. She turned to Nathaniel. "Nate, tell them to get this trash out of my sight." Nathaniel looked up, his expression unreadable. He looked at Tiffany, then at Gabriel. He opened his mouth to speak, but Tiffany didn't wait, fueled by the adrenaline of her own tantrum. Tiffany stepped forward. She raised her hand. Gabriel saw it coming, but she was too shocked to move. She was holding the heavy silver tray with both hands, unable to defend herself. Crack! The sound was sickeningly loud. Tiffany's palm connected with Gabriel's cheek with full force. The impact whipped Gabriel's head to the side. The silver tray clattered to the floor, echoing like a gong crash. The silence that followed was absolute. No one chewed. No one breathed. Even the music seemed to have died. Gabriel stood there, her cheek radiating a stinging, hot pain. Tears welled in her eyes, not from sadness, but from the sheer shock of the violation. She slowly raised a hand to her face. Tiffany stood panting, her chest heaving, looking triumphant. "There!" she spat. "Maybe that will teach you some respect." Ross was shaking. "Gabriel," he whispered, "get to the kitchen. Now." But Gabriel didn't move. Something inside her, the fear of the eviction, the exhaustion, the desperation had snapped. It was replaced by a cold, hard clarity. She looked at Tiffany Street. Claire. Then she looked at Nathaniel Harrington. Nathaniel was staring at Gabriel, but he wasn't looking at her red cheek. He was looking at her neck. In the commotion, the collar of Gabriel's uniform had shifted. Exposed against her collarbone was a thin, silver chain carrying a very specific, very old pendant. A small, tarnished silver lark with a chipped wing. Nathaniel's face went white. He stood up slowly, ignoring his fiancée entirely. "Where?" Nathaniel's voice was a hoarse whisper that carried across the silent room. "Where did you get that necklace?" Tiffany blinked, confused by the sudden shift in attention. She looked from Nathaniel to the waitress, annoyed that her dramatic moment was being interrupted. "Nate, who cares about her cheap jewelry?" Tiffany scoffed, smoothing her dress. "Sit down. Ross is handling it. She's being fired." "Quiet, Tiffany," Nathaniel said. He didn't shout, but the tone was so cold, so menacing, that Tiffany actually clamped her mouth shut. He stepped around the table, ignoring the spilled sauce, the overturned tray, and the stunned diners. He walked right up to Gabriel. Gabriel flinched as he got close, expecting another blow. Nathaniel stopped a foot away, his hands trembling slightly at his sides. "The lark," he said, pointing to her neck. "The silver lark with the chipped wing. Where did you get it?" Gabriel's hand flew to the necklace. It was her most prized possession, the only thing she had left from her life before the foster homes, before the struggle. It was a gift," she stammered, her cheek still throbbing. "From my brother, a long time ago." "Your brother," Nathaniel repeated. He looked like he was seeing a ghost. "What was his name?" "I don't see how that's any of your business." "Sir," Gabriel said, her pride flaring up despite the situation. "Please just let me go. I'll leave." "Tell me his name," Nathaniel's voice cracked. Desperate now. Gabriel swallowed hard. "Christopher. His name was Christopher. He gave it to me the day he left for the academy. He said the lark sings even when its wing is broken." The color drained completely from Nathaniel's face. He staggered back a step, gripping the edge of a nearby empty table for support. "Gabriel," he whispered. "Gabriel." "Beans." Gabriel froze. The tray she was about to pick up slipped from her fingers again. Beans. Nobody had called her that in 15 years. Not since the fire. Not since the funeral where they told her that her older brother's best friend, the boy who used to sit on their porch and play guitar, the boy who promised to look after her, had died in the same car crash that killed Christopher. She looked at the billionaire. Really looked at him. Beneath the expensive suit, the groomed beard, the hardened eyes of a corporate shark. She searched for the lanky, smiling teenager she used to know. "Nate," she whispered. "Nate, is that you?" A collective gasp swept through the restaurant. The diners were now standing, phones out, recording every second. "Oh my God." Tiffany broke the spell. She laughed, a high, nervous sound. "This is ridiculous. Nate, do you know this help? Is she some charity case you forgot to mention?" Nathaniel ignored her. He reached out, his hand hovering near Gabriel's face, afraid to touch her. "They told me you died," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "The police report. They said you were in the back seat with Christopher. They said there were no survivors. I wasn't in the car," Gabriel said, tears spilling over now. "I was sick that night. I stayed home. But after they died, my aunt, she didn't want me. She put me in the system. I tried to find you. Nate, I tried to find your family. But they said you moved to Europe. They said you wanted nothing to do with the past." "That's a lie," Nathaniel growled, a dark fury entering his eyes. "My father told me you were dead. He showed me the death certificate." "This is very touching," Tiffany interrupted loudly. Sensing she was losing control of the room, she stepped between them, placing a hand on Nathaniel's chest. "Really, Nate, it's a lovely reunion. But this woman just insulted me, and I was assaulted by her incompetence. We can catch up with your little childhood friend later. Right now, she needs to be removed." Nathaniel slowly took Tiffany's hand off his chest. He held it for a second, looking at her perfectly manicured fingers. Then he dropped it like it was toxic waste. "You slapped her," Nathaniel said quietly. "She ruined dinner." Tiffany argued. "You slapped her," Nathaniel repeated, his voice rising. He turned to Ross, the manager, who was cowering near the kitchen door. "Ross, did you see this? I saw an altercation. Mr. Harrington." Ross squeaked. "It was unfortunate." "Unfortunate?" Nathaniel laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. "My fiancé assaults a member of your staff in the middle of the dining room, and you call it unfortunate, Mr. Harrington. Please," Ross pleaded. "We value your patronage. We can make this disappear. Gabriel, you're dismissed. Go home. We'll mail you your final check." "She is not going anywhere," Nathaniel barked. He turned back to Gabriel. He looked at her worn shoes, her frayed apron, the red handprint fading on her cheek. Then he looked at Tiffany, dripping in diamonds he had bought her. "Gabriel," Nathaniel said softly, "do you know who owns L'Orizzonte?" Gabriel shook her head, wiping her eyes. "A holding company, Vanderlei Group or something." "Vanderlei Group is a subsidiary of Harrington Tech," Nathaniel said. "I own this restaurant. I own the building. I own the block." He turned to the room, addressing everyone. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the disruption. Your meals are on the house tonight." He turned to Ross. "Ross, you're fired. You let a customer abuse your staff and tried to cover it up. Get out." Ross's jaw dropped. "But, sir, out!" Nathaniel roared. Ross scrambled toward the exit without another word. Then, Nathaniel turned to Tiffany. The room was electric with anticipation. "Nate." "Baby." Tiffany smiled nervously, trying to salvage the situation. "Don't be dramatic. You can't fire the manager over a little slap. It's just a waitress. Think about the press. Think about the engagement party next week." "There won't be an engagement party," Nathaniel said calmly. Tiffany's smile faltered. "What? I'm not marrying you, Tiffany. You can't be serious," she hissed. "Over her, a poverty-stricken waitress you knew when you were 12. "No," Nathaniel said. "Not just because of her, because of you. I've spent 2 years making excuses for your behavior. Tiffany, the way you treat drivers, maids, waiters. I told myself it was just stress. But tonight, watching you hit a woman who is working herself to the bone, it woke me up. I don't like who I am when I'm with you." He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. "And Tiffany, the security cameras here are high definition. I'm pressing charges for assault on Gabriel's behalf." Tiffany's face went from shock to pure venom. "You wouldn't dare. My father will destroy you." "Your father works for me," Nathaniel deadpanned. "Now, get out of my restaurant." Tiffany looked around. People were snickering. Someone shouted, "Bye, Felicia!" She let out a scream of frustration, grabbed her purse, and stormed out, shoving a busboy on her way. Nathaniel exhaled, his shoulders slumping. He turned back to Gabriel. The anger vanished, replaced by a profound sadness. "I have so much to explain," he said. "But first, let me get you some ice for that cheek." Gabriel managed a weak smile. "I'd like that. Nate." It seemed like the happy ending. The billionaire finds his long-lost sister figure. The evil fiancé is banished, and justice is served. But this was not the end. As Nathaniel led Gabriel toward the VIP booth to sit down, a man in a dark trench coat who had been sitting quietly in the corner stood up. He hadn't touched his food all night. He walked over to their table, slow and deliberate. "Mr. Harrington," the man said. His voice was gravelly. "Touching display, truly." Nathaniel looked up, annoyed. "I'm sorry. The restaurant is closed. We're having a private moment." "I'm afraid this can't wait," the man said. He reached into his coat pocket. Gabriel flinched, thinking it was a gun. Instead, he pulled out a gold badge and placed it on the table. "Detective Miller, NYPD," the man said. He looked at Gabriel. "Gabriel Jenkins, or Gabriel Miller. As you go by now, you're under arrest." Nathaniel stood up, shielding Gabriel. "What the hell is this? She's the victim here. My ex-fiancé just assaulted her. This isn't about the slap. Mr. Harrington," the detective said coldly. He pulled out a pair of handcuffs. "This is about the robbery at the St. Clair estate 5 years ago, and the murder of Tiffany Saint, Claire's grandfather." Gabriel gasped, her blood running cold. "I didn't do it, I told you. I was just the maid." "We found the missing jewelry." "Gabriel," the detective said. "It was in your locker in the back. Just found it 10 minutes ago, based on an anonymous tip." Nathaniel looked at Gabriel, confusion warring with his newfound loyalty. "Gabriel, what is he talking about?" Gabriel looked at Nate, panic in her eyes. "Nate, I swear, I'm being framed." The detective grabbed Gabriel's wrist, snapping the cuff on. "Save it for the judge. You're coming with me." And just like that, the billionaire's reunion turned into a nightmare. As they dragged Gabriel out the front door, past the paparazzi that Tiffany had likely tipped off, Gabriel saw a black limousine parked across the street. The window rolled down just an inch. Through the gap, she saw platinum blonde hair and a smile that chilled her to the bone. Tiffany hadn't just left. She had activated Plan B. The back of a police cruiser smells like stale sweat and industrial sanitizer. For Gabriel, it smelled like the end of her life. Her hands were cuffed behind her back, the metal biting into her wrists. She sat awkwardly on the hard plastic seat, watching the city blur by through the wire mesh divider. Every jolt of the car sent a fresh wave of nausea through her. "Please," Gabriel said, her voice trembling. "I have a son. He's with a neighbor. I need to call her. He's sick." Detective Garrison, formally introduced as the man in the trench coat, didn't even look up from the passenger seat. "You'll get your phone call at the station. Ms. Jenkins. Or is it Miller?" You seem to have a hard time deciding who you are. I changed my name to protect myself, Gabriel cried. From her, yeah, guilty people usually run, Garrison muttered. The cruiser pulled up to the 19th precinct. It wasn't like in the movies. It was chaotic, loud, and brightly lit with harsh fluorescent tubes that made everyone look sickly. Gabriel was paraded through the bullpen. Cops paused their typing to look at her, the waitress in the stained uniform who had supposedly murdered a billionaire's grandfather. She was fingerprinted, photographed, stripped of her shoelaces and belt. The humiliation was methodical and slow. Finally, she was chained to a metal table in a sterile interrogation room. Minutes turned into hours. Gabriel put her head on the table and wept, thinking of Leo. He was 4 years old. He needed his nebulizer for his asthma, if she didn't get back to him. The door banged open. It wasn't Detective Garrison. It was Nathaniel Harrington. He looked different than he had at the restaurant. The shock was gone, replaced by a terrifying, cold fury. He was flanked by a woman in a sharp navy suit who looked like she could cut glass with her jawline. "Mr. Harrington, you can't be in here," Garrison shouted, running in behind them. "This is an active investigation. And this is my attorney, Olivia Gladys," Nathaniel said, his voice level but dangerous. "She informs me that you arrested my employee without a warrant, based on an anonymous tip, and searched her personal property, a locker on my premises, without my consent or a warrant." "We had probable cause," Garrison argued, though he looked less confident facing Olivia Gladys. The tip specified the location of stolen goods connected to the Saint. Claire homicide case. The Saint. Claire death was ruled an accidental fall 5 years ago, Olivia interjected, slamming a file onto the table, reopening it as a homicide on the word of an anonymous tipster who just happens to be connected to the woman. "Mr. Harrington just broke up with, that smells like a lawsuit. Detective, a career-ending one." Garrison stiffened. "We found the brooch, the blue heron diamond. It was in her locker, wrapped in a towel with her name on it." Gabriel lifted her head, her eyes red-rimmed. "I didn't put it there. I swear. Nate, I haven't seen that brooch in 5 years." Nathaniel pulled out a chair and sat opposite her, ignoring the detective. He reached out and covered her cuffed hands with his own. His hands were warm, grounding her. "Gabriel," he said softly, "I need you to tell me exactly what happened 5 years ago. No more secrets. If I'm going to fight this, I need the truth. Why did you run? Why did you change your name?" Gabriel looked at Garrison, then at Olivia, and finally settled on Nate's eyes. She saw the boy she used to know, the boy who had promised to protect her when they were kids. "I was working at the street, Clare Estate," Gabriel began, her voice hoarse. "I was 19. I needed the money for college. Arthur Street. Claire. Tiffany's grandfather. He was the only one who was kind to me. Tiffany hated him. He controlled the trust fund. He told her she wouldn't get a dime until she proved she could be responsible." "That sounds like Arthur." Nate nodded. "He was a tough old bird. The night he died." Gabriel continued, tears spilling over again. "I was bringing him his tea in the study. I heard shouting. Tiffany was in there. She was screaming at him to sign something. He refused. I heard a crash. When I ran in, he was at the bottom of the library stairs. The room was silent. Tiffany saw me," Gabriel whispered. "She didn't call 911. She looked at me and smiled. She said, "You did this, Gabriel. You pushed him. You wanted to rob the safe." She told me if I didn't leave right then, she'd have the police arrest me for murder. She said her family owned the police. I was a foster kid. Nate, nobody cares about foster kids. I was scared. So I ran. "And the brooch?" Olivia asked. Pen poised over a legal pad. "I never touched it." "She must have kept it," Gabriel said. "She kept it for 5 years, waiting for the moment she needed to use it against me. Or maybe she just planted it today because she saw you recognize me." Nate stood up, pacing the small room. "She saw the necklace," he muttered. "At the restaurant. When I saw the lark, she realized who you were. She knew I would never let you go once I found you, so she had to destroy you immediately." He turned to Garrison. "Detective, how much is her bail?" "It's a murder charge. Harrington, remand is standard." Garrison sneered. "It's a theft charge pending a murder investigation," Olivia corrected sharply. "And until she is arraigned on homicide, she is eligible for bail on the possession of stolen goods. Set a number." Garrison crossed his arms. "Flight risk, false identity, no fixed address. The judge will set it at 500,000. Minimum." Nathaniel pulled a checkbook from his jacket pocket. He didn't hesitate. He scribbled a sequence of numbers, tore the check out, and slammed it against the detective's chest. "1 million, Nathaniel said, "to cover any administrative fees. Process her out. Now." Garrison looked at the check, then at Nate. "You're making a mistake. Harrington, she's playing you." "The only person playing games," Nate said, his eyes cold as ice, "is the woman I almost married, and I'm about to flip the board." It took 3 hours to process the paperwork. When Gabriel finally walked out of the precinct, the sun was beginning to rise over the Manhattan skyline. The city was waking up, indifferent to the fact that her life had been shattered. A black SUV was waiting. Nate held the door open for her. "Where are we going?" Gabriel asked, shrinking into the leather seat. "I need to get Leo. Mrs. Higgins can't keep him this long." "We're going to my place," Nate said. "It's the only place secure enough. And don't worry about Leo." He pointed to the front seat. Gabriel leaned forward, in the passenger seat. Sound asleep with a stuffed dinosaur clutched to his chest was her son. "Leo," she gasped. "I sent my head of security to pick him up from your neighbor," Nate explained gently. "Mrs. Higgins was hesitant, but a generous donation to her cat's veterinary bills convinced her we were the good guys." Gabriel looked at Nate, overwhelming gratitude washing over her. "Thank you," she whispered. I don't know how to repay you." "You don't repay family," Nate said, staring out the window. "And that's what we were. Gabriel, before the fire, before the lies." They arrived at the Harrington Tower, a glass needle piercing the sky in Midtown. Nate's penthouse occupied the top 3 floors. It was a fortress of luxury, with private elevators and biometric security, while Leo was tucked into a guest bed that cost more than Gabriel's entire apartment. Nate led Gabriel into his study. It looked less like a home office and more like a command center. Screens covered one wall, displaying stock tickers, news feeds, and security footage. Olivia, the lawyer, was already there, along with a younger man tapping furiously on a laptop. "Gabriel, this is Hacker. Excuse me, cybersecurity specialist. Kenji," Nate introduced. "Kenji, what do you have?" Kenji spun his chair around. "It's bad, boss, But it's also sloppy. Show us, Nate commanded. Kenji pulled up the security footage from L'Orizzonte. Okay, look at the timestamp. Kenji pointed. 7:42 p.m. This is when the main course is served. Here is Gabriel. On the screen, Gabriel struggled with the heavy tray. Now watch the busboy, Kenji said. He zoomed in. The image was grainy but clear enough. The busboy, a lanky kid with acne, didn't just bump Gabriel. He checked his watch a second before doing it. It was timed. He bumps her, Kenji narrated. Gabriel drops the sauce. Chaos ensues. Now, watch Tiffany. Nate leaned in, his jaw tightening. On screen, while Gabriel was being slapped and the manager was screaming, Tiffany didn't look at Gabriel. Her hand went under the table. She slipped a small, dark object to the busboy. The key. Gabriel breathed. My locker key. We keep them in our aprons. Exactly, Kenji said. The busboy takes the key. He disappears for 4 minutes. Then he returns the key to your apron pocket while you're crying and the manager is firing you. In those 4 minutes, he went to the locker room, planted the brooch, and called in the anonymous tip. Can we identify the busboy? Olivia asked. Already did. Kenji smirked. Name is Jerry Falco, aspiring actor. 2 arrests for petty fraud. And here's the kicker. His bank account received a wire transfer of $10,000 yesterday morning from a shell company registered in the Cayman Islands. Tiffany, Nate growled. She's not even trying to hide it. She is, Olivia corrected. Shell companies are hard to trace. Without Jerry's testimony, this footage just looks like a clumsy collision. We can't prove he planted the brooch. We just see him near her apron. We need Jerry, Nate said. Where is he? Kenji's smile faded. That's the problem. He bought a one-way ticket to Mexico City. His flight left 2 hours ago. Gabriel slumped in her chair. So I'm doomed. They have the brooch, the motive, and the flight history. No, Nate said firmly. We have leverage. Tiffany cares about one thing more than money, her reputation. He turned to Olivia. Draft a press release. We're going to announce that Harrington Tech is severing all ties with the St. Clair family due to ethical discrepancies. We're going to tank her family's stock. Nate, that will cost you millions, Olivia warned. I don't care. Just then, Nate's phone buzzed. He looked at the caller ID. Tiffany. He put it on speaker. Hello, Tiffany, Nate said, his voice deadly calm. Nate, darling. Tiffany's voice purred through the speaker. She sounded entirely unbothered. I heard you made a scene at the precinct, spending $1 million on a maid. That's gauche, even for you. Drop the act, Tiffany. We know about Jerry. We know about the setup. Jerry, who is Jerry? Tiffany laughed. Oh, you mean the poor witness who saw Gabriel push my grandfather, the one who is currently terrified for his life because you're hunting him. Nate's blood ran cold. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the exclusive interview Jerry just gave to the Daily Chronicle. Tiffany said, It's airing in 10 minutes. He claims he saw Gabriel arguing with my grandfather 5 years ago. He claims she threatened to kill him. And he claims you, Nathaniel Harrington, paid him to keep quiet back then. You're insane, Nate whispered. I didn't even know Gabriel was alive 5 years ago. The public doesn't know that, Tiffany cooed. And by the time you prove it, Gabriel will be in prison, and your stock price will be in the toilet. Unless what? Unless you come over to my apartment right now, alone, and bring the engagement ring back. I think we need to renegotiate our future. Nate looked at Gabriel. She was pale, shaking, holding her necklace, the silver lark. "Don't go," Gabriel whispered. "She's a viper." "I have to," Nate said to Tiffany. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up. "Kenji," Nate barked. "I want a wire, a camera, anything. She'll sweep you for bugs." "Nate," Kenji warned. "She's not stupid." "Then I need something she can't sweep," Nate said. He looked at Gabriel. "Gabriel, give me the lark." "What?" Gabriel touched her neck. "The necklace," Nate said urgently. "It's old silver. It's hollow. Isn't it Christopher used to hide notes in it?" Gabriel's eyes widened. "Yes. It screws off at the bottom." "Kenji, can you fit a transmitter in there?" "Give me 5 minutes," Kenji said, grabbing a soldering iron. Nate turned to Gabriel, gripping her shoulders. "I am going into the lion's den. I need you to stay here. Don't leave this room. Olivia is in charge." "Nate," Gabriel said, her voice trembling. "Why are you doing this? You could just walk away. You're a billionaire. You can find another fiancée." Nate paused. He reached out and tucked a stray lock of hair behind her ear, a gesture so tender it made Olivia look away. "Because I spent 15 years thinking I let my family die," Nate said softly. "I'm not losing you again." "Beans." He grabbed the modified necklace from Kenji, clasped it into his pocket, and walked out the door. The St. Clair penthouse was a monument to excess. White marble floors, gold leaf ceilings, and a view of Central Park that cost more than most countries' GDP. Tiffany was waiting in the lounge, wearing a silk robe and holding a glass of champagne. She looked like a movie star. She looked like a predator. "You came," she smiled, taking a sip. "I knew you would. You have a hero complex. Nate, it's your fatal flaw." "Cut the crap, Tiffany," Nate said, standing by the door. "Call off the D.A. Tell them you found the brooch in your own jewelry box and made a mistake." "Why would I do that?" Tiffany pouted. "She's a criminal. She's innocent, and you know it. You killed your grandfather, didn't you?" Tiffany's eyes flashed. "Be careful. Nate, accusations like that require proof." "I know you." Nate stepped closer. "You were 22. You had maxed out your credit cards. He was going to cut you off. You argued. You pushed him. And you saw the maid standing there and saw a convenient scapegoat." Tiffany set her glass down. She walked over to Nate, trailing a finger down his lapel. "He was an old fool," she whispered. "He was going to give my inheritance to charity. Can you imagine St. Clair money going to save whales or feed orphans? It was obscene. I did what I had to do to protect the family legacy." Nate's heart hammered against his ribs. She had admitted it. But was the lark recording the signal strength in this steel-reinforced building was terrible. And framing Gabriel, why keep the brooch? Nate goaded her. Insurance. Tiffany shrugged. "I knew she might come back. I didn't expect her to come back as your waitress. But life is funny like that. And now, I have the perfect leverage." She circled him. "Here is the deal. Nate, we get married. Next month, as planned. You merge your tech holdings with my family's real estate portfolio. We become the most powerful couple in New York. If you do that, I'll make a call. The witness will recant. The charges will be dropped. Gabriel can go back to her pathetic little life. And if I refuse, then Gabriel goes to prison for murder. And I will make sure your secret love child That boy she has ends up in the worst foster home in the state. I have connections in child services too. You know." Nate froze. "Leave the boy out of this. It's up to you, darling." Tiffany smiled, holding out her hand. "Kiss the ring or kill the girl. Your choice." Nate looked at her hand. Then he looked at her face. "I have a choice too," Nate said. He reached into his pocket. Tiffany expected the engagement ring. Instead, he pulled out his phone. He tapped the screen. "Did you get that? Kenji!" A voice crackled through the phone speaker. Loud and clear. "Boss, the signal from the necklace was weak, but we boosted it. We have her confession on tape. I did what I had to do. We have it all." Tiffany's face went white. She lunged for the phone. "You bastard!" Nate caught her wrist easily. He wasn't the passive, bored fiancé anymore. "It's over, Tiffany," Nate said, his voice ringing with authority. "The police are listening to the live stream. They're in the elevator right now." Tiffany screamed, a primal sound of rage. She broke free and ran not to the door, but to the wall safe behind the painting. She scrambled to open it. "What are you doing?" Nate shouted. She pulled out a gun, a small, pearl-handled pistol. "I am not going to prison," she shrieked, pointing the gun at Nate. "And if I can't have you, nobody can—" Bang! The gunshot was deafening in the confined space of the penthouse. Nathaniel didn't feel the pain immediately. He felt the heat. The bullet had torn through the fabric of his suit jacket, grazing the deltoid muscle of his left arm before shattering a baccarat crystal vase on the mantel behind him. Shards of glass rained down like diamonds. Tiffany stood frozen, the pearl-handled pistol shaking in her grip. Smoke curled lazily from the barrel. Her eyes were wide, not with remorse, but with the terrifying realization that she had missed. "You missed," Nathaniel said. His voice was eerily calm, though adrenaline was flooding his system. He took a step forward. "And you don't get a second shot." "Stay back," Tiffany shrieked, fumbling to cock the gun again. "I'll kill you. I'll tell them it was self-defense. I'll tell them you attacked me." They heard the shot. "Tiffany," Nathaniel said, nodding toward his phone on the floor. "The police heard you threaten me. They heard you pull the trigger. It's over." Before she could fire again, the elevator doors at the end of the hall dinged open. It wasn't the police, not yet. It was Detective Garrison, gun drawn, leading a SWAT team. Kenji had patched the audio directly to the precinct, bypassing the 911 dispatch delay. "Drop the weapon, NYPD. Get on the ground." Garrison roared, his service weapon trained on Tiffany's chest. Tiffany looked at the police, then at Nathaniel. For a split second, Nate saw the calculation in her eyes, the desperate math of a narcissist trying to find an exit. She lowered the gun slowly, then suddenly raised it to her own temple. "Don't do it," Garrison shouted. "You won't take me to a cell," she hissed, tears streaming down her face. "I am a saint, Claire." "Tiffany, look at me," Nathaniel said, his voice dropping to a soothing register, despite the blood now soaking his sleeve. "If you pull that trigger, you die a murderer and a coward. If you put it down, you're just a woman who made a mistake. Your father can get you lawyers. He can get you a plea deal. Don't end it like this." It was a lie. Mostly. Nate knew there would be no plea deal for attempted murder of a high-profile billionaire. But he needed her alive. He needed her to confess to the murder of her grandfather so Gabriel could be fully exonerated. Tiffany's hand trembled. The vanity, the entitlement, it was warring with her survival instinct. Slowly, agonizingly, she lowered the gun, Garrison didn't wait. As soon as the barrel pointed at the floor, he lunged. He tackled Tiffany onto the Persian rug, kicking the gun away. "Get off me! You're hurting my wrist!" she screamed as he slapped the cuffs on her. "You have the right to remain silent," Garrison recited, hauling her to her feet. "Anything you say can and will be used against you." As they dragged her out, kicking and spitting, she locked eyes with Nathaniel one last time. "You'll regret this. Nate," she spat. "My father will burn your company to the ground. You think you've won? You've just started a war." Nathaniel didn't answer. He just picked up his phone. "Kenji." "I'm here." "Boss." Kenji's voice was shaky. Did she just shoot you?" "I'm fine. Just a scratch. Tell Gabriel." Nate paused, looking at the blood dripping onto his hand. "Tell Gabriel I'm coming home." Back at Nate's penthouse, the scene was one of relieved hysteria. When Nate walked in, his arm bandaged by a paramedic in the lobby, Gabriel didn't say a word. She ran to him, burying her face in his good shoulder, sobbing. "You idiot," she cried. "You stupid, brave idiot." "She had a gun. She had a gun," Nate agreed, wrapping his arm around her. "But we have the truth. The recording is safe." Kenji backed it up to 3 different cloud servers. Olivia, the lawyer, was already on the phone, pacing the room. "Yes, I want a bail hearing immediately. No, I don't care what time it is. We have a confession for the St. Clair murder and attempted murder of Nathaniel Harrington. Gabriel Miller is innocent. Get the DA on the line now." She hung up and looked at them. "It's going to be a media circus. The St. Clairs are powerful. They own half the judges in this city. This isn't over. They will try to bury the tape. They will try to discredit you. Gabriel, are you ready for this?" Gabriel pulled away from Nate. She looked at Leo, who was happily watching cartoons on a massive screen, oblivious to the fact that his mother had almost gone to prison for life. She straightened her spine. The worn-out waitress who had taken the slap at the restaurant was gone. In her place was a mother protecting her cub. "Let them try," Gabriel said. "I'm not running anymore. The trial of the people versus Tiffany Street." Claire began 6 months later. It was the hottest ticket in New York. The courtroom was packed every single day. The defense strategy, led by Tiffany's father's legal team, a phalanx of the most expensive lawyers in the country, was brutal. They couldn't deny the shooting. There were too many witnesses, so they focused on the recording. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," Tiffany's lead attorney, a slick man named Arthur Pendleton, said in his opening statement, "You will hear a recording obtained illegally, a recording made under duress. Miss St. Clair was being threatened by an ex-lover who was trying to extort her. She acted in self-defense. They painted Gabriel as a gold digger who had seduced Nathaniel to get revenge on her former employer. They painted Nathaniel as a bitter ex-fiancé. For weeks, it seemed like it might work. The judge, an old friend of the St. Clair family, sustained almost every objection Nate's team made. Then came the day Gabriel took the stand. She wore a simple grey suit Nate had bought her. She looked small in the witness box, but her voice was steady. Pendleton, the defense attorney, circled her like a shark. "Ms. Miller," he sneered. "Isn't it true that you were fired for incompetence, that you spilled hot sauce on my client?" "I didn't spill it," Gabriel said calmly. "I was pushed by a ghost." Pendleton laughed. "We have the security footage. You are clumsy, you were angry, and you hated Tiffany Street." Claire because she had everything you didn't. Isn't that right? I hated her, Gabriel admitted, causing a ripple of gasps in the gallery. I hated her because I watched her kill her grandfather. Objection, Pendleton roared. Speculation. Overruled, the judge said. Surprisingly, I saw her. Gabriel continued, looking directly at the jury. I saw her push him down those stairs, and I saw her smile. You can call me clumsy, you can call me poor, but you cannot call me a liar. I lost 5 years of my life because of her. My son spent his first years in poverty because I was afraid to use my own name. I am done being afraid. Her testimony was powerful, but they needed the nail in the coffin. They needed the busboy. Kenji had spent months tracking Jerry Falco. The trail had gone cold in Mexico City, then picked up in Brazil, on the final day of the trial, just as the defense was about to rest. The courtroom doors opened. Olivia Gladys stood up. Your Honor, the prosecution calls a surprise rebuttal witness, Mr. Jerome Falco. Tiffany, sitting at the defense table, went pale. She grabbed her lawyer's arm. You said he was taken care of, she whispered loudly enough for the front row to hear. Jerry walked in. He looked sunburnt and terrified. He was flanked by 2 U.S. Marshals. When he took the stand, he didn't look at Tiffany. He looked at his hands. Mr. Falco, Olivia asked, where were you on the night of the incident at L'Orizzonte? I was working, Jerry mumbled. And did anyone approach you with a proposition that night? Yes, Jerry said. Miss St. Clair. What did she ask you to do? Jerry took a deep breath. She gave me $5,000 cash in the alley behind the kitchen before the shift started. She told me to bump into Gabriel when she was serving the main course. She said she wanted to embarrass her. And the brooch. She gave me the key, Jerry said, his voice trembling. She told me to put the jewelry in Gabriel's locker while everyone was watching the fight. She said if I didn't do it, she'd tell the cops I was selling drugs out of the kitchen. And why did you run? Because she called me the next day, Jerry said. Finally looking at Tiffany, she said if I didn't leave the country, I'd end up like her grandfather. The courtroom erupted. The judge banged his gavel, but it was useless. The jury was staring at Tiffany with open disgust. The verdict came back in under 2 hours. Guilty. On all counts. First-degree murder of Arthur Street, Claire, attempted murder of Nathaniel Harrington, perjury, obstruction of justice. As the bailiffs moved to handcuff Tiffany, she didn't scream this time. She just looked at Gabriel across the aisle. Gabriel didn't look away. She didn't smile. She just nodded. A silent acknowledgement that the debt was paid. 1 year later, the headline on the New York Times business section read, Harrington Tech announces record profits, launches the Christopher Project for foster youth. Gabriel sat on the terrace of the penthouse, reading the paper. The morning sun was warm on her face. She wasn't wearing a waitress uniform. She was wearing a silk robe, and on her finger was a ring, a vintage sapphire that had belonged to Nate's grandmother. Coffee. Nate walked out onto the terrace, holding 2 mugs. He kissed the top of her head. Thank you, she smiled, taking the mug. Leo is still asleep. He's exhausted, Nate laughed. That kid has more energy than a nuclear power plant. The trip to the zoo yesterday wiped him out. Gabriel looked out over the city. It looked different from up here. It didn't look like a struggle anymore. It looked like a promise. I got a letter from Tiffany today, Gabriel said quietly. Nate stiffened. From prison, I thought I blocked her correspondence. It was addressed to you. Gabriel said. But I opened it. What does she want? She wants forgiveness, Gabriel said. She says she's found religion. She says she's sorry. Nate sat down next to her. Do you believe her? No, Gabriel said simply. But I don't care. I don't hate her anymore. Nate, I don't feel anything for her. She's just a memory, a bad chapter in a book that's gotten really good. Nate took her hand. He traced the lines of her palm. You know, he said, I was thinking about the restaurant, L'Orizzonte. Don't tell me you want to eat there. Gabriel groaned. The food was pretentious. I want to close it, Nate said. I want to gut it, and I want to give the space to you. Gabriel blinked. To me, to do what? You always talked about opening a bakery, Nate said. When we were kids, you said you wanted a place that smelled like bread and cinnamon, not lobster and anxiety. Make it happen. Beans. Design it. Run it. It's yours. Tears pricked Gabriel's eyes. Nate, that's prime Manhattan real estate. It's worth millions. It's worth nothing if it doesn't make you happy, he said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Inside was the silver lark necklace. It had been polished, the chip in the wing repaired with a seam of pure gold kintsugi, the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery with gold, treating the breakage as part of the history, not something to disguise. I had it fixed, Nate said, fastening it around her neck. But I kept the scar visible, to remind us. Remind us of what? Gabriel asked, touching the gold seam. That we broke, Nate whispered, leaning in to kiss her. But we put ourselves back together, stronger. Gabriel smiled, leaning into him. Below them, the city bustled and roared, full of people fighting their own battles. But up here, high above the noise, there was only peace. Okay, Gabriel whispered. Let's open a bakery. And that is the incredible true story of how a single slap in a restaurant brought down a corrupt dynasty and reunited two lost souls. It goes to show that you never truly know who you're dealing with. The person serving your coffee might just be the most important person in the room. If you enjoyed this story of justice, betrayal, and redemption, please destroy that like button. It really helps the channel grow, so I can bring you more epic sagas like this one. Don't forget to hit subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss a part. What did you think of Tiffany's punishment? Did she get what she deserved? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.